Hello, welcome to The Conversation in New Central Television. This program will bring you up to speed with all the political happenings on the African continent. I am Gbenga Aborowa.
And I'm Rita Omodia. Today on The Conversation, we'll be talking about Nigeria's cash swap crisis, where the Supreme Court has restrained the federal government from implementing the February 10 deadline for the owed 200, 500 and 1,000 Naira notes to stop being legal tenders.
Meanwhile, there seems to be no end to the conflict in Kenya's politics as President William Ruto and opposition leader Raila Odinga are back to the war of words again. This time is about the tax evasion allegation involving the former President Uhuru Kenyatta's family. Interesting times in African politics, Rita. They even christened William Ruto Zacchaeus the tax collector.
Okay, it's not funny actually. I mean, we've had the war of words in Kenya between Raila Odinga and William Ruto. We thought that after the election, after the Supreme Court had actually upheld the election victory of William Ruto, that it was over. But Raila Odinga said, no, it's not over
yet.
It
feels like elections have not even been done, and because you can feel the aggression of the opposition politics. But I guess it's part of the beauty of democracy. Dissenting voices, and
there's a way you actually express your dissenting voices, not that you insult or you accuse people falsely, but we see that going on. Yes, you can express yourself, but still in a mannerly and orderly way.
Yeah, and of course Nigeria, a few weeks to the much look forward to general elections and issues every day, talking points, and I look forward to hearing what our guests have to say. So let's begin in Nigeria, where the central bank's Naira redesign policy has caused quite a stir in the nation's economy and political space. Nigerians have experienced hardship getting cash and complain bitterly of the devastating effect this has had on their businesses and livelihood. Meanwhile, 13 out of the 18 political parties have threatened to withdraw from the elections, which are 3 weeks away, if the Central Bank of Nigeria does not extend its February 10th deadline, less than 48 hours away.
However, the Supreme Court today, in response to an ex parte motion filed by governors of Kaduna, Kogi and Zamfara, has halted the federal government's move to implement the February 10 deadline for the expiration of the old Naira notes. The old Naira notes were initially to expire January 31, but it was further extended to February 10 due to public outcry of scarcity of the legal tenders. I'm actually waiting to see how this all pans out. Well, anyway, to join us to discuss all of this, we have Godbless Otubure, Global President, ReadyToLeadAfrica, and Dotun Ojon, political analyst, who joins us from Lagos, Nigeria. Gentlemen, welcome to the conversation.
It's good to be here.
All right, so Dotun, we have 13 out of 18 political parties about 2 days ago threatening to withdraw from the elections, but there is no mention of specific parties. Now that the Supreme Court today has stopped the federal government from implementing the February 10 deadline, temporarily, do you think they would make do with your threats?
Of course, everything that happens during an electionary period like this always comes with political consequences. And the essence of being in political party or being a leader in a political party is actually to win election directly or indirectly. So anything that may actually affect your chances of winning election both directly or indirectly is considered as threat. You can actually do everything possible to actually ward off such threat. And I think that's exactly what some of these political parties are doing at this moment. So it is actually expected because this important decision is happening now. A lot of people think it's actually hasty, than they are reading political meanings to it. And to support that fact is the truism that even the Ministry of Finance is not aware that there was going to be a program like that. So a lot of people have begun to suspect the government that, maybe the government is actually doing this at this point because of some political reasons. So if political parties are boycotting election, it's because they've also studied the situation and they found out that it may prevent them from winning election both directly and or indirectly.
Thank you, Doctor. Now, God bless. Your organization just last week, if I'm not mistaken, did get political leaders to sign a peace pact. But we've seen what the CBN's Naira redesign policy is causing. There were riots in Abeokuta and Ibadan. Nigerians have been groaning about the hardship it's caused. Now that the Supreme Court has said, you have to move the deadline, do we expect the government to obey court orders? I mean, this is not even a conversation we should be having in the first place, but because in the past we've seen wanton disobedience of court orders. What do you think of the Naira policy, and how would this, the next few days, if money is not made available to people, how would it affect Nigeria as a whole?
Okay, thank you so much. You talked about the youth-led presidential peace accord, which we signed in Abuja with some of the candidates, and not all of them yet, but we're still continuing that push for peace. And thank you, New Central, for always being there and reporting this very important part of our electoral process. So the thing is this: the first mistake is the Supreme Court of Nigeria is suddenly becoming a laughing stock. And it's painful. It is absolutely painful. The case about the lawfulness of the actions of the CBN is not supposed to be heard at the Supreme Court. It is at the High Court. The Supreme Court is not the proper place for the adjudication of this issue. It is the High Court, because all of this stems from the CBN Act. I can't understand why the Supreme Court has turned itself into the instrument that any politician or any government official can just, bring into any conversation. Do I expect that the president and the CBN will obey? Well, because of the Supreme Court, and let me say this: what the governors have done is to buy time, right? Because at the end of the day, these are sub-nationals with authority over certain things. But when it comes to the issue of fiscal policy, monetary policy, these are issues that are right within the executive and legislative arm of government. So I really do not understand why the Supreme Court would allow itself to be brought into a conversation that should be heard at the High Court. So for me, it is and it's just waking up every day realizing that we are deliberately setting ourselves up for trouble. Whether it is the interpretation of, the Lawrence case recently, now you have the CBN, being drawn into this conversation with the state governors, and now you have the Supreme Court coming in.
Yeah,
it is just a show of how we are ignoring the warning signs. The policy itself is fantastic from a macroeconomic perspective. You can't have 3-point-something trillion outside of the banking sector and you keep quiet. Am I feeling the pain? Yes, I don't have any cash with me right now. I don't. Someone had to give me 1,000 naira to be able to pay for the food I ate 2 days ago. So it's not as though I'm not feeling it. I'm feeling it. I can't make certain transactions because of what is going on. You have the tech part of banking that is not working properly, and you have all of this queues and at ATM. But for us to say completely that there is no other alternative to buying and selling in this country, it is a lie. It is a lie. So for me, I see it as a teething problem. The only challenge we've had now is that politics have stained it. People have analyzed it and said it is done to, affect somebody's chances at the polls. Others have said this is insensitive and the timing and all of that. But the truth is, we all understand that when things like this happen, society begins to respond and put up the necessary measure to ameliorate. Whether you like it or not, this policy was definitely going to happen.
Okay.
But has it been done properly? All the checklist ticked by CBN? Absolutely no. And I think CBN has not communicated properly with Nigerians.
Okay, God bless. I'd like to stay with you for a moment because you say, yes, the Supreme Court has been dragged into all of this. They have extended it to, I mean, the case has been extended to February 15. You talk about the governors trying to buy time. But now you're having 13 political parties out of 18 saying they would withdraw if this actually happens. It has happened. And the Supreme Court is trying to extend all of this. How will this affect elections? I mean, it's barely 3 weeks away. Are we still looking at the bigger picture of all of this?
And its credibility.
So yesterday there was a meeting between the INEC chairman and the CBN governor, where the CBN governor reiterated the desire of the CBN to ensure that INEC has all the cash it needs to be able to sort out its logistics. So trust me, that's going to happen. INEC needs 1 billion to do it. CBN can get that to them, and how they distribute it is their responsibility. So in terms of the election logistics, I think INEC and the CBN can sort out that whole issue. Do I think the 13 unnamed political parties will withdraw? Absolutely no. I don't think they will. It is going to be foolish for you to withdraw from a contest that, I mean, you don't control the monetary policies of the country. And if you withdraw, you don't affect the CBN's position. So I do not think that they would withdraw. This is just a, I mean, if you ask me, I'll tell you they were just making a statement. And,
okay. Thank you, God bless. Now, Dotun, there have been speculations that the recent fuel scarcity, Naira scarcity in the country are poised to destabilize the polity and discourage voters from participating in the elections or even triggering them so they can vote in a particular way. Do you think this design was well thought of? And what do you make of all these theories?
Just as I said the other time, one will continue, especially if you have studied politics in Nigeria. One may continue to read political meaning to some of these actions of government. But again, one very important thing that I like to point out is that it's never been recorded in Nigeria that hardship has led the people of Nigeria to voting in a particular way. We have seen it. We can continue to measure backward. The situation of the economy became very bad in 2019 as to how it was in 2015. But that did not in any way deter Nigerians from voting for the particular party that is in power, that's APC. So hardship has never in any way deterred Nigerians from voting out a government or a political party. And that's very simple because the majority of voters in Nigeria, the traditional voters, are mostly in poverty. These are market women here and there. And this can also be a way of, if they stay more in hardship, on the day of election, as little as 1,000 naira can actually derail the direction of the election. So no political party can come out to say, at the moment now that this scarcity has actually given them an upper hand in the election that is to come. As an administrator of a political party who has also participated in several elections, I can tell you of a fact that if we are to talk as politicians, then the advice would be for all the political parties to actually, it's not time to celebrate for any one of them. But again, you cannot continue to, because you cannot read the mind of a Nigerian politician. A Nigerian politician can tell you that I'm doing this because of this, but within inside of them, they know the primary motive. For example, and I'm going to cite an instance. This is the first time that we are having people across board come out to condemn the federal government as to the suffering of Nigerians. Then you begin to ask yourself, oh, do these people actually love Nigerians like this, that they are all coming out to say, oh, the policy has to stop, the policy has to halt because Nigerians are suffering. But I feel that everyone is concerned that what they want to do during election may not be done. The cash they will need during election may not be available. There was a statistics that that I was involved in that came out some years back that actually pointed out that to win a governorship election in any state in Nigeria, on the day of election, the person must have doled out close to over 1.5 billion. That's if you calculate between 3,000 to 5,000 naira per vote. And this continues to happen. But if there's scarcity of cash on the day of election, it can affect any of the political party.
All right, thank you so much, Dotun. I'm going to bring Godbless into all of this. I'm still talking about all the theories and speculations going on, especially the plan that this Naira scarcity, this fuel scarcity, is to sabotage these candidates. And this was made popular by the APC presidential candidate, Bola Ahmed Tinubu. Now, in all of this, it had to take the governors of Kaduna, Zamfara, and Kogi to write an expletive motion against this Naira scarcity to the Supreme Court, and then we had it extended. The president is still back in the central government and insisting that this redesign policies for the good of the nation. Meanwhile, we saw a report from the presidential candidate of the All Progressives Congress, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, commending the Supreme Court for halting the ban. This is still under the APC administration. What do we make of all of this? Because earlier on, there were all the rumors that probably there's a bit of crack in the APC governance. How do we look at the governance structure? A candidate of the APC and the president who is in APC having kind of opposing views?
Well, if you ask me from an objective point of view, it's the beauty of democracy. Like the idea that, we can disagree even on the same sheet. And that is why the Joe Biden's Build Back Better plan was heavily frustrated in the early stages by Joe Manchin, who is a senator in the Democratic Party. So it takes a level of maturity and independence of mind and thinking to disagree on the same sheet. Why is this an issue? Because in Nigeria, we just think that because we're in the same party, then we cannot disagree. It's not true. That's not democracy.
I mean, God bless. Don't you agree that you can disagree internally, but not coming outside to actually disagree? It shows a bit of discontent within the party because people want to see a party who is united.
No, I know. That's why I used the first example of Joe Manchin and Joe Biden, right? Because it takes a level of democratic maturity for people within a political party to disagree based off on policy. Now, I'm going to come to the Nigerianness of this conversation. I'm speaking from the place of an objective onlooker who is looking at a party has a presidential candidate and the presidential candidate is disagreeing with the current president. It's possible. I'm just simply saying, is this a proof of maturity of politics? Or like we expect, once you are on this sheet, whether the thing is wrong or right, you say nothing. Because that's what Nigerians are asking. That's what we actually want. We're not saying to the APC and saying, how can you be in power and then you are disagreeing with each other and then we know about it? And somehow we castigate the party, we castigate our people to say, oh, how can you be in this same place and you are not saying anything, despite all that's been happening? Remember, that's actually the toga that they've given to the vice president of Nigeria to say a lot of the things that have happened within the current administration, he's kept quiet. He hasn't said anything against it. Now, someone who is running for office is saying this thing is not right, and now you're saying, oh, this is a proof of discord. Let me come back to the conversation. So they have managed it differently. Yes, the Nigerian way, where the president doesn't do what he's supposed to do, while he does what the candidate wants. The president has said, look, we cannot have, the president didn't just act on his own. He was acting based on the intelligence report and the advice of the CBN to say, we cannot have 3-point-something trillion naira outside of the banking system, and we can, and you expect us to be able to plan. Now, the president definitely understands that. The other person, who is the candidate on the other hand, maybe believes that he needs money for the election at a certain level, and maybe they've stocked up on the old currency Look, what now? Maybe. So if this redesign happens, what happens is that the old currency becomes null and void. Now, at what point is this about national development and not about the interest of one person? It's a symposium question. It's a symposium discussion. But I am telling you from where I'm standing and you're asking me a question. The goal is to give answers that educate, inform, and enlighten. The policy itself is fantastic. The infighting between the APC, is it good for Nigeria? Yes, it is a proof that we can be on the same ship and disagree based on policy. That is what we have been asking our politicians to do since that they've not done. Suddenly it's happening, and we are the ones also now saying, how can this be happening?
Thank you, God bless. Let me bring Dotun into the conversation here just before we begin to wrap things up. Now, Dotun, this is the 24th year of our uninterrupted democratic experience. Campaigns are still in full gear, and we've seen debates in town halls, and we've also seen some of the candidates use these campaigns as an avenue to, insult their opponents and what have you. My question to you is, have we interrogated these candidates enough? Have we asked them the how questions, because they promise heaven and earth in campaign seasons? And are you satisfied with the quality of the discussion we've been having in the political sphere, and also amongst those candidates that are vying for elective office across board?
Yeah, I think one cannot be sincerely satisfied. But again, it's not the problem of the ones we are asking the question. We are in a community at the moment where our problems persist. So the same problem we had in 2000 is the same problem we're having in 2020. So
you can go as far back as the 1980s. There's a joke that if somebody died when Shagari was campaigning, and now it's still the same issues: light, power, electricity, good roads.
Our questions and mindsets will always be around these basic things. But again, the need for all of us as a people to understand the fact that every community, and I want to be deliberate and sincere, that every community gets the kind of leadership it deserves, not the one it demands or the one it prays for. We are in a community today that even the good policy of government will be manipulated by people that are even outside of government, because we are only worried about survival. So our problems persist. And what are these basic problems? They revolve around poverty. It is this same poverty that people build on to illegally get the vote of the people. So when anybody comes out, it's still going to address the issue of poverty. The only thing we can do is to appeal to the certain percentage of Nigerians who have a better understanding of how politics and policy should be, how politics should work. When we appeal to them and they can come into the fold of those who decide our destiny direction politically, then maybe we have a different question. These are the middle class, so to say, who don't participate in the election process. So when we appeal to this set of people, then the question, the interrogation actually may change. But as we have it today, it's going to be exceedingly difficult, if not practically impossible, for us to be able to ask the right question, to interrogate them the right way, because the point of promise during every campaign is still mundane, it's still the same thing. It's still around issue of electricity, around water supply in the community, around road. There's no sense of urgency attached to any project, and greed has seemingly become our God across all board. So it's going to be the same. Once the problem is not solved and the problem continues to persist in the community, then the question may not be different.
Thank you so much, Dotun. And finally, God bless. I mean, we've seen political parties take sides on this particular policy, but the Supreme Court has said that even though it was to encourage cashless policy, the nation transactions in most areas cannot still make use of all of this electronic means for transfer. Now, we're seeing instability in the community, in the country. We're seeing banks shutting down. We're seeing people really angry, fighting. I mean, it's really not a wonderful sight on the streets. With this suspension, will things actually normalize? Because we have elections on the 25th. This is 10th of February. How long will it take? I mean, how are we going to continue like this? Will this suspension actually improve the cash flow in the country? What is the way forward?
Let me take our mind back a bit. When the Lekki toll gate was first opened, and it caused unimaginable traffic within the rental hotel axis and the Lekki phase 1, leading back to the Zumba Mbadiwe stretch. And the governor then was Fashola, and then he said these are teething problems that we would figure out even as we go, and we'll solve them. For me, I would say that the current challenges are teething problems. We have also seen that the policy is being hampered by banks. Banks are not releasing the cash in their vaults. So it's not a question of the cash is not available. It is the fact that bank managers are selling these monies and keeping it for politicians who want to buy votes in a few weeks. Like my brother said, greed has become second nature. We have lost the essence of our being. And it's simply because we did not redistribute resources, we did not build the community, we did not invest in people. We thought that owning a house, fencing it away from the pain of the community, is a proof of our own glory. It's a proof of our own fruitfulness. But what we were doing was that we were fencing ourselves away from the collective pain of the community. So everyone thought, if I can build and fence myself out, then I have succeeded. That is how we created the society that we have today. That is why people do these things and they don't really care about what happens to other people. At the end of the day, the banker, the bank manager, whose bank has now been burnt, maybe that's not the guy who hoarded the money. The guy who hoarded the money may be somewhere else. His bank branch has not been burnt, but his action has led to another person's bank branch being burnt. What it means is that we have become our problems. The leadership that we have in this country, it is from us. It is from us. They are not our source. We didn't bring them from Ghana or Liberia. They grew up here. That is why today, the way forward is that the CBN must continue to crack down on the banks. The CBN must continue to crack down on the banks and ensure that any bank that is not dispensing this money through their ATM, that is not giving over the counter, should be sanctioned. Because other than that, we are going to remain in this trouble for as long as it lasts. Because trust me, they printed money. I understand what the data is. The data is, for us to be able to get this right, we need about 50 million per day per bank in the 36 states for us to have some level of evenness and just flood everywhere. But that is going to be a heavy burden on the part of the CBN, and you need 90 days to do that. We don't have 90 days. And truth be said, this policy is part of recommendations from the civil society groups. Too much cash in the system is why vote buying persists. I hope that Nigerians can bear this pain. Let Nigerians go to the election and vote their heart. That is the goal.
I don't know how Nigerians will take this.
I'm serious.
A whole lot of time. Businesses are suffering from all of this.
I'm serious. Part of the recommendations from previous elections, we observe elections, we are going to be observing the elections in the 774 local government. I was part of the elections. I've been part of elections since 2011, actively working on the field. I can tell you one of the biggest challenges to our development is vote buying. It has become so brazen that we had to conscript the CBN into the conversation. So at the end of the day, the CBN is solving a problem that we do not have the power to curb. But the CBN coming in now, if the CBN gets the process of the redistribution of the Naira correctly, this is a fantastic idea.
Well,
it's a fantastic policy, and we should let it work.
Well, all this will be worthwhile if the CBN actually makes do with all this advice. I mean, it's barely weeks away that this cashless policy or this Naira scarcity has been going on for a very long time. And we're seeing even the International Monetary Fund also talking about this policy and saying that the federal government should have halted it or suspended all of it. So it's somehow getting international attraction. But of course, this conversation will definitely continue as we inch towards the 2023 elections. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
God bless Otubure, Global President, Ready to Lead Africa, and Dotun, Ojon, political analyst, who joined us from Lagos, Nigeria. Thank you so much for joining us.
I'm joining from Abuja now.
From Abuja.
Thank you.
Thank you.